I knocked on the door. Al Gore opened the door, and I introduced myself, saying, "Hello, I'm your massage therapist. How shall I call you?" He answered, "Call me Al," with a big smile as he stretched out his arms to wrap me into an embrace as a greeting in the inner entryway of the room as I stepped inside. He was wearing a long-sleeve dress shirt. It was a medium bright blue, I think, open at the collar, and dark pants, which were slacks, I think. The hug went on a bit long, and I was taken just a bit aback by it. If it weren't Al Gore, I would have seriously been questioning the situation right there, because a hug from an unknown male client before the session is a bit odd and unprofessional by typical LMT business standards. And the hug seemed to last a bit just long for just a friendly hug. However, because he was a VIP and a powerful individual, and the Hotel Lucia had made it clear to me by inference that they were giving him the royal treatment, quote unquote, in terms of billing, their treatment of him, etc., as though we were all ambassadors of Oregon and Portland for this man and expected me to do the same, and I was very dependent on keeping the Lucia's guests happy as I drew much of my work from them, I graciously went along with it. It was apparent from the beginning that he had been drinking, because he was at one point finishing off the end of a bottle of beer, although I cannot say whether he was drunk. I surveyed the two rooms briefly to determine which offered the maximum space and warmth, etc. for a massage session. He described a grueling travel schedule over the previous week or two, mostly by air, and he said he needed his gluteus, hamstring, quadriceps, and adductors worked on, as well as his abdominal area besides his back and whole body. I inquired if this was due to the long flight hours, and he said yes. I mentally noted that a request for adductor work is a bit unusual. In the massage world, sometimes it is said to possibly, but rarely, be that it's a precursor to inappropriate behavior by male client, but it's not necessarily out of the range of professional treatment. There are legitimate conditions for such requests, and I've had them.
And can you explain that in layman's term, the adductor, where that is on the body?
The adductor is the inside muscles of the thigh. If you're riding horse bareback, you've got to clench with your thighs to hang on. And the reason for this, I mean, besides that it's kind of a private area, but there's lots of people that have had adductor work done. It depends on the context of who your clients are, who you are, what kind of work you do.
Thank you.
I've had clients over the years with legitimate requests for such. In my training in massage school, I was taught that a massage of the adductors could cause an involuntary erection in some rare cases. With no sexual intent or feeling in the client, it's rather an involuntary vascular phenomenon. When I began doing the requested abdominal work on him, he became somewhat vocal, with muffled moans, etc., and he began demanding that I go lower in massaging on the abdominal area. I was shocked, and I did not massage beyond what is considered a safe non-sexual area of the abdomen. He further insisted and acted angry, becoming verbally sharp and loud. I went into much deeper shock as I realized it appeared he was demanding sexual favors or sexual behaviors. I decided to I got so freaked, I got a tiny bit mad under my terror. I decided to clarify things by asking him, as he angrily complained that I was not doing what he wanted, for him to show me exactly what he wanted me to do, such as wear a massage. I said, well, why don't you show me? Because I thought, this is too nuts. He grabbed my right hand hard, shoved it down under the sheet to his pubic hair area, my fingers brushing against his penis, and firmly planted my hand on his pubic crest region and said to me, "There," in a very sharp, loud, angry-sounding tone. This is all happening really fast, as you can imagine. Further yet into shock from both his demand and his angry, intimidating behavior, I subtly and slowly slid my hand up away from the area and told him it would be a counterproductive massage technique, as he had said that he'd wanted to unwind from stress and relax, and that it would get him too awake, I said euphemistically and diplomatically. I felt like I was dancing on the edge of a razor. He angrily raged in an accusatory and threatening confrontational tone. He bellowed at me. Just scared the shit out of me. I mean, I had no idea. And I've never had a client yell at me. except for one who was brain injured and she was drunk, and I work with her all the time. She's a mess, but she's like 5 feet tall, and she'll cry. Okay, so he screamed at me. He goes, I'm not asking, imagine yelling, I'm not asking for you to do anything inappropriate. To which I replied in a softer, terrified, calming tone, no impropriety was inferred, sir. At this point, I was realizing just how crazy and insidious he was and how precarious my situation was when he said the aforementioned, even though he clearly wanted inappropriate touch. It's like to make your mind go nuts. He was moaning, groaning, moving, and acting in a very suggestive way. It was unreal. I never even had any of my hotel clients get angry, yell, or act out at me before. During the massage episode, I realized much to my horror that I was in the perfect storm and that I was in a room with someone who was Teflon coated in terms of his credibility and celebrity status, and my usual safety net idea in all hotel massages before this of being able to escape from such a potential situation of perverted or threatening behavior from a client, which would be terminate the massage and leave the room immediately for help from the front hotel desk, even running and or shouting for help in the hallway if deemed necessary, was completely worthless in this situation. It was no longer viable because I feared that if I ran for the door to get out, I could or would be violently accosted by some security detail for seeming to be hostile, inappropriate, insubordinate, or threatening to him, and I feared being tased or shot by them as a first and immediate response. I also feared that if I made dissent with Gore, I could be in danger of being falsely arrested for false allegations of alleged soliciting or even attempted assault in his efforts to do damage control, and I felt certain that even the smallest complaint from him to the hotel could also destroy my work reputation in all the hotels and hence do irreparable damage to my livelihood, not to mention damage my personal reputation, which I had spent years building with my livelihood. I felt very uncertain if I'd be able to get out of the room without being accosted by him anyway at this point. Does that all make sense to y'all? Mm-hmm. He then tried another tactic as though he had very suddenly switched personalities and began in a pleading tone, pleading for release of his second chakra there. There's so much tension being held. This was yet another euphemism for sexual activity he was requesting, put cleverly as though it were a spiritual request or something. I was further deeply shocked and repulsed as my realization of what was happening sunk in, and especially as my mind was now reeling from this absolute betrayal by someone I had inherently trusted as a good guy who cares about people, including me, because of his public persona. When I came out, he was in his robe and he complimented me on the session. I felt I could leave without further problems from him, but I was wrong in that surmising. I was freaked out and trying to act calm and collected so as not to look vulnerable and so as to keep any other weirdness from him from happening. He engaged me in small talk as I headed for my massage table to break it down, and he came over to where I was while I was trying to pack up. And then he wrapped me in an inescapable embrace as I turned around, giving me this come hither look deep into my eyes, and caressed my back and buttocks and breasts. I squirmed to try and get out of his grasp, telling him to stop, don't, several times, and I finally told him and said, "You're being a crazed sex poodle," hoping that he'd realize how weird he was being, yet he persisted. He was much stronger than me, bigger than me, and insistent. It was completely unnerving, and I realized that resistance was making him giggle and pursue more strongly. And I knew then that this resistance was a dangerous tactic to use if I wanted to avoid being raped.